Hello listeners, this video focuses on Ian McEwan's Enduring Love. Ian McEwan, his full name is Ian Russell McEwan. He is an English novelist and a screenwriter. He was born in the year 1948. In the year 2008, the Times newspaper featured him on their list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. The Daily Telegraph, it's a British daily broadcast newspaper, ranked him number 19 in its list of the 100 most popular people in British culture. McEwan, he began his career to write Gothic short stories, and his first novel was The Cement Garden in the year 1978. His novel The Comfort of Strangers 1981 earned him the nickname Ian McEwan. His three followed successful novels are Enduring Love, which was adapted into film. Next is Amsterdam 1998. This won Booker Prize. His novel Atonement was adapted into film. The film won Oscar Prize. His most contemporary novels are The Children Act 2014, Nutshell 2016, Machines Like Me 2019, and he was awarded the 1999 Shakespeare Prize and the 2011 Jerusalem Prize. Now let us see an outline of Enduring Love. This is a novel written in 1997 by the British writer Ian McEwan. The novel has a plot that concerns about two strangers who's caught after witnessing a deadly accident. Let us see the characters of the novel. Joe Rose is the protagonist of the novel and the chief narrator. He's married to Clarissa Mellon. He's a science writer and a committed rationalist. Clarissa Mellon is the second protagonist of the novel and the wife of Joe Rose. She's a literary historian. She's interested in romantic British poet John Keats. Jet Parry is the antagonist of Enduring Love. Antagonist means the enemy, the villain. He is a deeply religious man. He suffers from de Clerambault's syndrome. This illness is a psychiatric disorder. John Logan, he is a family doctor who lives with his wife Jean and their children Rachel and Leo in Oxford. Jean Logan, who is the wife and widow of John Logan. After the death of her husband, she lives in the Oxford house with her children Rachel and Leo. She mourns throughout the novel for the death of her husband. Rachel Logan is a 10-year-old daughter of John Logan and Jean Logan. She lives with her widowed mother and her brother in the Oxford home. Leo Logan is a 8-year-old brother of Rachel Logan. James Chad is 55-year-old executive in an advertising agency. When the novel opens, he's featured as a balloon pilot. Harry Gadd is 10-year-old grandson of James Chad. Joseph Lacey is a 63-year-old farm laborer and the best friend of Toby Green. Toby Green is a 58-year-old farm laborer. He is unmarried and lives with his mother. The minor characters are James Reid, Bonnie Deeds, Joylyn Cale, Luke Mellon, Duty Inspector Lenley, Detective Constable Valleys, Colin Trape, Johnny B. Well, Steve, Zan, Daisy. The novel has 24 chapters. This video will have the whole summary of the novel. Let us see the summary of the novel, Enduring Love. The novel starts as the couple Joe Rose and his wife Clarissa Mellon are picnicking in the English countryside. Picnicking meaning they have taken a tour. So during their picnic, they hear the shouts of a child in distress. The child is none other than Harry Gadd. He was inside the bucket of a hot air balloon. The wind blows heavily and it threatens the child to be carried away. The child's grandfather is James Jodd, is working fearlessly to secure the basket below in order to set the child free. Joe Rose, with other men, helps to bring the child back to the ground. There were also other women who were attempting to bring the child back to the ground. The men among them are John Logan, who is a local doctor and a former mountain rescue worker, and Jed Parry, he is a young man who lives alone with his income from a large inheritance. When all these men were taking assistance from each, they did hold the ropes that dangles from the balloon's basket. However, their intervention ends in disaster because John Logan, when he was holding the rope, the wind carries the balloon high, and as he is holding the rope, he is also carried by the wind. Then he falls at a great distance that brings death. After his fall, Joe and Parry they share a few minutes together as they wait for the police arrival. Parry encourages Joe to pray, but he responds saying that he does not have any religious belief. In some time they depart. Later that evening, Joe and Clarissa they were talking about the events that happened that day again and again. And in the evening, he is awakened by a phone call that he receives from Parry. Parry's speech was different from that he was in the morning. He says that he believes what Joe believes and loves him. Joe is much confused and frustrated by Parry's speech. He hangs up the phone call and tells Clarissa that the call was a wrong number. In the following days, Parry's behavior was much confused. He suffers from de Clerambault's syndrome, which creates much delusion in his mind. His delusions carries the thoughts of Joe. He thinks that he is in love with Joe, and he starts to write letters to Joe. His letter carries long words, long sentences of expressions. Parry walks around Joe's apartment and he also leaves messages to ask Joe in order to answer his call. At this point, Joe is frustrated and plans to explain to Clarissa of what is happening. At first, Clarissa is hesitated to believe what Joe is expressing. Later, she prefers to believe and she explains that Parry is harmless and asks Joe to be gentle and careful with Parry. And Joe, in order to escape from Parry, he travels to Oxford to visit John Logan's wife, Jean Logan. He finds his wife being distraught and inconsolable. She reveals that her husband was having an affair in the weeks before his death. She does inquiries about the afternoon of her husband's death. She threatens that she would prefer to kill her husband's lover if ever she meets her. Back in London, as Joe returns, as days pass, he finds his relationship with Clarissa is troubled because Parry's obsession with Joe creates rift between the two of them, and slowly they experience distrust between the two. As this is continuing, one afternoon on a birthday luncheon in Clarissa's honor, where Joe, Clarissa, and her godfather is present. Clarissa's godfather is an elderly scientist and a professor. When they have their meals together, Joe notices that there is a composed group who have their meal next to their table. So in the composed group, he finds a woman and two men. Suddenly, he sees a pair of gunmen enter the restaurant. The two men, they come near to the nearby table and they shoot the younger of the two men sitting there. When the men try to shoot the man the second time, a man intervened them. It is Jed Parry. Joe understands that Jed Parry has sent the two men into the restaurant to kill Joe, but mistakenly the men had shot a man of Joe's age. Joe rushes to inform the police of what happened, and tells them that he is in danger. However, he is unsatisfied with the response of the police. When Joe finds to secure himself from Parry, he purchases a gun from a former friend. On his return, he receives a phone call from Jed Parry. Jed Parry threatens him by saying that he is sitting in Joe's apartment with his wife Clarissa and that Joe have to join them right away. When Joe rushes to London, he finds that Parry and Clarissa are together. He gets distraught by Parry's appearance in his life. When they meet, however, Parry confesses that his love for Joe has ruined his life and he pulls a knife from his pocket. Joe then shoots Parry on his arm in order to prevent killing him. In the later part of the novel, Joe and Clarissa, they again travel to Oxford to visit Jean Logan. They then picnic with Jean and her two children beside a river. At this point, they are joined by two of John Logan's friends. One is a university lecturer and a young woman. The two are romantically involved. Now, when they had conversation together, the university lecturer reveals that John Logan did not have any affair with any women. Rather, John Logan has given a lecture to a young woman. He then offered a ride to the young woman in his car. This made him to stop his car in order to secure the child from the wind. Jean Logan is now guilty. She felt bad for doubting her husband's faithfulness. So her guilt and her questions makes Joe and Clarissa to ponder their own relationship. Keeping this as a lesson, Joe and Clarissa, they promise each other to treat each other respectful, though they are intervened by anyone. The major theme of this novel is the importance of loyalty, rationalism and intuition, obsession. Hope this video helps. If you have suggestion and query, write it down on the comment below. Do not forget to subscribe this channel. Thank you for listening.